How's it going, guys? So, welcome to another edition of the Sonic Retrospective series. Today we're going to be taking a look at Sonic CD. Now, this is a really interesting game here, because so far we've looked at Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic 3, and Knuckles. So we've looked at, like, all the major games. These are the most talked about games in the Sonic series, but we have yet to talk about another mainline game. That's kind of an oddball, kind of an odd man out. Sonic CD. Still talked about a lot, but not as much as those other games. So we're going to be taking a look at that one here today. And I remember playing this game for the first time on the PC back in 2001. I had heard a lot about this game. I had read about it in the comics, you know, the storyline. They adapted it for the Sonic the Hedgehog comic, issue 25. And I really liked Metal Sonic. I liked a lot of what this game stood for. You know, time travel. There was a lot of very interesting concepts going on here. And I had never played this game, you know, as a child. So I would be experiencing this game for the first time as a teenager. You know, with like a whole different mindset. I had matured. So what would I think of this game that like had eluded me my entire childhood? I remember after playing it, I felt kind of confused, not really too sure how to feel. And that's how I still feel about it to this day. I've played the HD port, and I still don't really know how I feel about this game. I know that I like it. I know there's parts of it that I don't like. But I'm going to work it out here in this retrospective for all of you guys. So guys, without any further ado, here we go with our Sonic CD retrospective. Sonic CD is a whole different kind of Sonic game, one in which you can play in different ways, and it introduces the sci-fi concept of time travel. Sonic gets his Marty McFly on without a DeLorean in sight.
Great Scott!
It's a very odd game, really. It's a mainline Sonic game, but it's not a part of the same batch of mainline Sonic games that we've all come to know, Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It's a Sonic game that not a lot of people got to play due to it being on the poor selling Sega CD, but of course, people were always saying it was the best Sonic game ever, because of course it was. It was the game that no one played. So these cool underground Sonic hipsters had experienced what all of us commoner peasant Sonic fans never got to. Funny how once this game saw numerous re-releases, you never heard this claim anymore. Sonic CD is a quality game, a good game, a game with quite a bit to offer, but it's definitely not the best Sonic game ever. It never was. It might be the most ambitious Sonic game ever, but in terms of pace, mechanics, and gameplay, this game is slaughtered by Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and it's still outclassed by 1 and 2 in my humble opinion. Funny thing is, this game's development actually started off as an enhanced port of Sonic 2. It came after Sonic 2, yet Tails is nowhere in sight unless you're playing the HD port, which is the version we will be looking at today. So let's see what exactly Sonic CD brings to the table. Sonic CD sees that speedy blue hedgehog speeding off to save the world from yet another dastardly Dr. Robotnik plot. This time he steals a planet. Yep, that's right. Robotnik's gone rustled up himself a planet. Little Planet to be exact. No, not that PS4 game. He's after the Time Stones, which are almost exactly like the Chaos Emeralds, and you go about getting them just like you did in Sonic 1. Collect 50 rings across the game's 7 zones, and enter the big ring at the end of the act to access the bonus stages, in which you'll get a chance to obtain one of the Time Stones, but instead of the trippy rotating mazes, you'll get these trippy stages where you run around as you destroy UFOs with colorful backgrounds. I like these better than Sonic 2's bonus stages. I like almost any Sonic bonus stages over the impossible Sonic 2 ones. But they're very challenging. I find it extremely difficult to hit the UFOs. The controls are very wonky here, and the perspective fools you, making it hard to judge when exactly to jump up and hit the UFOs. Now you can skip all this and still get the game's good ending with an alternate process, but it's way more annoying. Now you can go speed through levels and ignore all the collecting calamity, and these zones and acts aren't really that long for the most part, and the game is a pretty breezy, fun time. And if you don't want to do the time stones and you still want to get the best ending possible, you must do the one thing. I can't say it. No, I must. It's sacrilege to the Church of Sonic, but I will utter the words. Slow down. Yes, it's hard to believe, but Sonic CD requires you to slow down or you will miss the robot transporters, which are located in the past of the game's zones, introducing the game's time travel mechanic. Throughout the zones, you will find these signs that when you hit them, you will travel to the time period indicated on the sign when you pick up enough speed. Sometimes it's easy and they'll be located in a place where you can easily pick up enough speed, and sometimes it's challenging to pick up enough speed because the level design simply makes it a nuisance. Now you're pretty much always wanting to go into the past since that's where you will find the robot transporters, but sometimes you'll hit a future sign by accident, and sometimes you'll speed up when you don't mean to, and you'll end up being flung into the future. But if you didn't destroy the robot transporter in that act yet, it's pretty much worthless. So then you have to go into the past, which is technically the present, which you just came from, and then you'll have to find yet another sign to go into the actual past, and this mechanic is unique, and it's cool once you do what you have to in the past and make a good future, and you can actually view the fruits of your labor. But the fact you have to do this a total of 14 times throughout the game is just maddening and takes way too much time, especially when these zones still have time limits and the robot transporters are sometimes hidden in the most asinine places. I'm all for exploring in a Sonic game, and truthfully, I have no problem with slowing things down to give this game some extra variety and depth, and the fact that a game mechanic as ambitious as time travel was even implemented in the first place deserves a certain level of appreciation, which is actually pretty ahead of its time, and even goes further than games like A Link to the Past in certain respects. However, this is a bit much, and it's pretty daunting a task to find everything the game wants you to. It's fun exploring the zones and checking out the cosmetic differentials of the future and past versions of each level, and that's the best way to play the game. Just casually going through the levels, because finding all the transporters is just nuts. So with that said, let's check out these zones. Palm Tree Panic. This is the Green Hill Zone, Emerald Hill Zone of the game. It's more complex in design, and it introduces how the level construction looks in general. The layout just looks way different. It definitely feels less balanced and a bit more random and abstract. It's hard to explain, but it just doesn't look as good and feel as good as those classic zones. Those zones just had a cleaner look. Don't get me wrong, I like this zone, but it's just not as good. I really like how Act 1 kicks the game off with this pseudo 3D perspective ramp to hype you up with some style. It's also a great place to experiment with your new move, the Super Peel Out, a cool move that helps you pick up extra speed that we would rarely see from this point on. Also, at the end of Act 1, we are introduced to our one-way love interest, Amy Rose. Amy wants a piece of that blue booty real bad, but Sonic's just not having it. It's here we realize that Sonic CD gives us a total of 3 acts per zone. But Act 3 is always a very brief act that is mostly taken up by the boss battle with Robotnik. It's here you will hear the creepiest boss music in Sonic history, if you're playing with the US soundtrack. Have a listen right here, and try not to pee yourself listening to this untold horror. The Japanese boss music is charming, but it sounds a little bit too much like a Richard Simmons workout track. Well, now that we're on the topic, how can I not talk about this game's tremendous soundtrack? Both of them. What? Yes, that's right. Both the US and Japan received 2 different versions of the soundtrack. Many seem to side with the Japanese version, but for me, it's hard to make a choice because I like way too many tracks from the US version to count, and in some ways it might even be a tie. But for example, I like the US's boss music better. Collision Chaos. If you're unaware, you can just kill yourself by running to the right too soon at the start of this zone, making for hilarious troll here. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, this is just bizarre because who thinks this is going to be here? How am I supposed to know if I'm a first-time player that with a flat stretch of ground in front of me and no rings that an immediate hazard will appear? You're supposed to wait until Metal Sonic plows through those spikes, making his debut, and kidnaps Amy, who probably would have followed you through the whole game if she could. Hey Sonic, why not give this girl a chance? You like squirrels but not your own kind? Sonic doesn't discriminate. Well, Amy, looks like the only zone you're going to for the rest of this game is the friend zone. Collision Chaos is the spring yard zone of this game. It's pretty much that zone point for point with a bit of Casino Night Zone, especially with the pinball flippers. In Act 3, Robotnik traps you in a pinball room, and getting to the top of the level can be a real pain in the neck. It's not a traditional fight. He just keeps throwing these damn light bulbs at you, keeping you from making it to the top. So you just keep bouncing around and you could possibly fall into the spikes at the bottom of the stage. It's an interesting approach to a boss fight, and it's funny that Sonic Spinball came out shortly after Sonic CD, but this fight is pretty annoying and frustrating. Title Tempest. I wonder if the guy naming the stages for this game had a thing for alliterations. Nah, couldn't be. This is a more colorful labyrinth zone, but I'm really not a fan of the developers basically reusing so many assets from Sonic 1, with 3 levels in a row that are basically modified versions of Sonic 1. This wasn't too creative considering this was only the 3rd mainline Sonic console game. It does have some different level gimmicks, but I can't shake the feeling that it's recycled. It's definitely easier and less annoying. Like, for example, you don't have spikes just popping out of nowhere at inopportune moments. The level design definitely feels more streamlined in comparison to the other zones in the game, and it is well designed, but it definitely takes most of its design cues from Labyrinth. I like the Robotnik fight and the idea of him being protected by air bubbles and the fact you need to breathe all the bubbles to expose Robotnik's craft to hit him. It's creative and fun, but so easy. And this is definitely one instance where I prefer the US version of the soundtrack. This track right here is just so calm and soothing. I just absolutely love it. Quartz Quadrant. What exactly happened here? This zone is so damn short. I like the mining concept, but the design isn't very exciting or fun. The conveyor belts are like the only gimmick here. There's many levels and layers to the zone from a vertical perspective, but it's so small. There's just not a lot here. I mean, how am I able to get through all 3 acts in 3 minutes? And I'm not even trying to speedrun here. I am the furthest thing from a speedrunner, but here I am just blazing through this zone, and it's just there. I feel like the developers just lost interest when designing this zone. It just feels empty and unfinished. I like the boss fight, however, where you run on a conveyor belt avoiding hazards until it overloads Robotnik's machine, but that's about it. Wacky Workbench. Well, this is definitely more effort-filled. The gimmick with the bouncy floor is cool, but it can get pretty annoying, and you will be doing basically zero running here. But after mindlessly running through the last zone, I'll take it. Good luck finding the robot transporters here if you're into that sort of thing, because with this floor bouncing you all over the place, exploration is definitely way more challenging. The emphasis on platforming is different, and I like that this is completely original, and there's nothing like it in the first 2 games. It's wacky. The boss is an interesting platforming based challenge. I really like these experimental boss fights. I wish this was a concept we could have seen more of as this series progressed. Stardust Speedway. I really like this zone. Lots of speed, lots of gimmicks, lots of color. Just an astounding zone. It's no surprise that the Sonic Mania team picked this zone to represent Sonic CD. The abstract level design works best here. It feels like a zone built for Sonic, and it's really a great time to go through this one. Act 3 is a tremendous boss battle as you must contend with both your foes. You race Metal Sonic to the finish line in the death race as Robotnik chases after you with an insta-death laser. I love the sense of urgency here, and it capitalizes on Sonic's best known trait, his speed. When I think of Sonic CD, I always think of this awesome fight and zone. After the race, you save Amy Rose, and Sonic still couldn't care less. Hey Amy, funny your last name is Rose because Sonic's never gonna give you one. Wow, that sounded cold. Damn, I'm a monster. Well, I guess I'm no better than friend zoner Sonic. Usually the hero would kiss the damsel in distress, but Sonic is just getting hugged, emotionless, just tapping his foot waiting for the upcoming level transition. Wow. What an asshole. Metallic Madness. I love this final zone. There's just so much gimmickry and fun stuff to do here. There's surprises and traps at every turn. Act 2 is huge and it feels like a massive factory. And it even outdoes Scrap Brain Zone in my opinion. It just feels like Robotnik is throwing all he has at you. Scrap Brain was no cakewalk, but this just feels more like a final rush. I love the miniaturizing Ray that turns you into Mini Sonic. The developers definitely had fun here with the ideas and concepts. The final boss battle is an absolute joke. I'm not sure why this ended up so bad. Robotnik has a fan with 4 blades. The first blade you destroy is impossible not to get hit by. And I mean that literally. You must take an actual unavoidable hit here. Who designed that? 3 more hits and he's done. What a lousy fight. And compared to the Stardust boss battle, this is much less fun and fulfilling. And to go even further, how does Sonic go from fighting a massive towering robot at the end of Sonic 2 to facing a freaking fan machine. I mean, was Robotnik on a budget here after losing the Death Egg robot? Could he not get alone in time for this game to avoid a cool new final machine? Well, Sonic's adventure is done, and, well, it's fun, but to those who spent so many years praising the hell out of this game, it just never lived up to the hype. I'll never forget picking this up for the PC back in 2001 and saying to myself, that's it at the end of the game? Like, I couldn't believe that was the last boss. I mean, after Sonic 2, that was just anticlimactic as it gets. Overall, it's an interesting experiment in the Sonic world that should be cut a lot of slack for its shortcomings because of the fact that it's not a total mess for it being the first of its kind. It's far from perfect, flawed, but still a cool adventure to go through. Not all of it works, but enough of it does to be considered memorable. It's just that Sonic has had way better 2D games, and he would be going on to have his very best one in only a few months when Sonic 3 would be released just a mere 5 to 6 months later. If you're new to the Sonic series, don't start here. But if you've played the classic series or Sonic Mania and never played this, I would recommend you play it to get a piece of great Sonic history. Well, thank you all for watching, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the retrospective. Next time, we're going to be taking a look at something outside of the Sonic series, something Sega related, and that's going to be Streets of Rage 4. I think that's going to be my next video. Maybe I might choose something different, but as of right now, that's the direction that we're going to go in for the next video, so I hope you guys are all looking forward to that. And guys, subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support, and guys, I'll see you next time.